Hey there, welcome to the Her Business podcast. I'm Susie Daphnis, I'm your host, I'm the CEO at Her Business, and today I want to talk about something that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that's okay. I know you've got this. If you're listening to the podcast, you've probably built a business that generates revenue, maybe significant revenue, and you've worked hard for it, you've grown this business, you've kept it running through everything that life has thrown your way. But my question is this: are you actually building long-term wealth? And I want to be clear about what I mean. I'm not talking about this year's revenue or turnover or even profit. I'm talking about wealth. And the definition that I like to use for wealth is Buckminster Fuller's definition. Now, Buckminster Fuller was an American inventor. He's been passed now many, many years. His definition was that wealth is a person's ability to survive a certain number of days forward. And when I first heard this definition, PJ and I, we latched onto it. How could we run our business and create our life so that we could survive many days forward even if we stopped working? That is what I mean by wealth. But I also mean wealth in choice, in how you spend your time, in what your future looks like, regardless of whether you sell the business one day or you retire or you decide to go in a completely new direction one day. But what about if we were building wealth that allows us to survive and thrive many, many days forward without having to continue to work really hard? Because the truth is, for most women who have genuinely built a successful business, the answer is not yet feeling like I'm wealthy. Sure, the money comes in, but it doesn't stay or accumulate or compound the way it could. And that's because building wealth and generating profit are not the same thing. And my guest today is changing how business owners understand this, and she's daring them to do something different. Now, Mel Browne is an award-winning ex-accountant and ex-financial advisor, now one of Australia's most respected financial educators. She's the CEO at Mel Browne Money and the author of 5 books, including her latest book, which we talk about in this interview, and that is Dare to be Wealthy. I love that title. Now, this conversation with Mel will change how you think about the relationship between your business and your financial future, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. So let's welcome Mel Browne. Hey, Mel, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you. I was at your book launch was it last week, the week before? I don't know, all the days are merging together.
Oh, I know, same.
Oh, you must feel that more than me, just having launched your 5th book.
Thank you.
Yes, you're very welcome. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation because
I love
such
that
an
you've dressed
advocate
in
for wealth.
theme with it, to see the yellow with the yellow from the book. Very good.
Oh, and you've got a little pink. I was going to try and slide this across to you. Of course I can.
Yeah, we can pretend. Oh, wow.
There we go. There we go. There it is. All right. All right, let's dive in. So here at Her Business, one of the statistics that upsets me the most when I hear it is that only 13% of women business owners generate more than $100,000 in their businesses. And sometimes this is after years and years. Now, the number itself doesn't bother me, but the fact that it's only 13%, that's the bit that bothers me, and we're working really hard to change that. Of the women who have 6- and 7-figure businesses, however, and have managed to scale beyond perhaps even what their last paycheck was, many don't feel wealthy. Could you tell us, in your opinion, what is going on, and also what the difference is between revenue we might get in a business and this idea of real wealth?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you are so passionate about this statistic, because I am too. So I meet way too many women that are starting businesses because of stages of life, or because they want to step out of a high corporate career, or it was maternity leave, or just to solve a need, and they're just not putting enough time and effort into growing it. Revenue, but also growing profitability. And they absolutely aren't looking over to the other side at looking at growing wealth. And I think part of that is just an uncomfortableness. You know, as women, we're starting businesses to solve a need, not to get rich. So there's an uncomfortableness about growing. And probably to explain that best, and this was probably about 8 years ago, I was at a dinner with other business owners, all female, all successful, and we were talking about this was probably about a decade ago, and we were talking about what we were aiming for. And I said, well, I'm really aiming for $1 million. Like that's the target that I have for myself in the business at the moment for this particular one that I had started. And there was a bit of, like there was like audible, uncomfortable moments. And I had someone come and say to me after, you were really brave for sharing that. I went, why? Why do we think we're brave for saying that this is what we want to go for? Because I always want to create transformational change in the business that I'm in. But I also want to make wealth because I'm starting businesses, not charities. So I think what's going on is really how we feel about the word wealth and how we feel about, as women, what are the roles that we are supposed to be playing when it comes to not just business, but society as a whole, because ultimately that's what's shaping what we're doing in our businesses and what we're doing with our wealth creation.
I love, you said so much in what you just said. And I mean, the book is called Dare to be Wealthy. And just that declaration of this is what I want, unapologetically, this is what I want. And that number, and we'll talk about numbers later, is very individual. But I remember I tell a story sometimes, PJ and I, we'd been about 3 years into the business and we were down south in Hynes Beach at a little blue cottage that's still there today. And we were unpacking what's going on in this business. It's got to 6 figures. It's growing, but we are just like spinning our wheels. We're always busy. And that trip in the sand at Hynes Beach, I got a piece of driftwood and I wrote the number 1 million. And I had never declared even to PJ that is what I wanted. But once we got clear on that, then we could structure the business, the offerings, the team, all of that around that. Now, did the $1 million matter? No, it wasn't going to be a profit, but it meant there was a goal to go for, and it meant a bold declaration of numbers that were way beyond what my parents had ever seen, what anyone around me, and you may have a similar experience, that to even dare to say, I want $1 million business. Now I'm like, I don't want to be in business unless it's doing 7 figures, but I know that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But I think it's just about having that clarity.
And it is that I'm exactly the same. I'm a Western Sydney chick where even though my dad was an accountant, we didn't talk about money, we didn't talk about investing. And certainly putting out that a woman could start her own business and earn that much, I just didn't see it. And it is that what you don't see, you can't emulate, or you don't know to want, I guess. And I think the problem for me is that I meet a lot of women that are saying, I want to do this and I want to do that, but then just not saying the number. And I will always lead with a number because probably being an accountant and financial advisor, I'm just used to them. Like they're just a number. And I think if we just desensitize ourselves to that, they're just a number. They don't take away from the good that we want to do in our business, the effect we want to have, but the effect that they'll have on us by declaring them and by reaching and by working towards them. I always have conversations with the women in my business. We're here for purpose and profit. I don't want profit at the expense of purpose, but I do not want purpose at the expense of profit. So we are here for both.
I love that. I love that so much because, and you see this all the time too, women who are building impressive top-line revenue, so they're getting, some traction, but they're actually not increasing their personal wealth. So I wanted to talk about that. What are we missing structurally where we, the money's landing in the bank account, but at the end of the day, we're not seeing it actually create a future for us?
I think it's structural it's the message that we've received as women around what we should be doing with the money that we have. So when I've worked with a lot of women that own their own businesses about the fact that they're not paying super for themselves and they're potentially not paying a wage that's high enough for themselves, they'll say, oh, yes, but I just want to give back to X, Y, whatever within the business. Or, oh, yeah, but my family needs that money. Whereas if that woman was in a corporate role, she would be getting a wage at least of that amount and she would be getting super paid on that. That's not selfish, that's structural. So when I used to be taught, when I was an accountant and I would be talking to women around, right, if you're running this business, unless we are making the same that you would be able to go and get a job, then it's problematic. So let's look at that. And then let's make sure that you are paying yourself and you are paying super for that, because that should be the bare minimum around what we do. And it doesn't matter what structure you're using, sole trader, partnership, company, trust, just to name a few. I want women to get in the habit of paying themselves regularly, of paying themselves a wage that matches what they're worth, and paying the super on that wage or on the wage that they would have been able to get if they were earning somewhere else. Because it's not selfish to be paying yourself that. That's simply the bare minimum we should be aiming for. And I think it's, if you've got kids and you're worried about the family, like, this is putting your financial oxygen mask on. This is showing great habits to say, I actually prioritize my financial needs so that I can look after you.
Right.
So because the stats are that, every second marriage will fail. So if you're saying that you don't want to pay that for yourself because of the family, well, actually it behooves you to look after yourself because of exactly that.
Yeah, and like you said, it's like the bare minimum. We don't all have to have seven-figure goals, but the bare minimum, what are you worth out there in the marketplace, or what could you get out there in the marketplace, and matching that. I want to talk about a couple of words because language is so important, and financial literacy is something that has been part of my world for many, many years. I want to talk about the word rich, which I think is even more tainted for many of us than the word wealthy. Do you think about them differently? How should a woman running a business think about that difference, perhaps in practical terms?
I think it's figuring out the word that settles best with you and running with that. Because personally, I don't love the word rich. For me, it's like flash in a pan and get rich quick, and it's here for a short time, not for a long time. Whereas wealth for me is long, it's deep, it's simply choice and freedom. Whereas someone else who maybe is in the health space, for them, rich might be rich in health. So therefore, they have no problem thinking of themselves as rich in money as well. But more women that I talk to feel deeply uncomfortable with rich. But it is being aware that words have power. And asking, well, what is the thing that's most comfortable to you? And if wealth is uncomfortable to you, use choice instead. I'm not building wealth, I'm building choice. And we want to put a dollar figure around that. But if I'm building a business, and if that business is taking me away from friends and family and affecting, like it's taking up my time, then I want it to be. I want it to be able to give me choice in my personal life as well. And how I do that is through building wealth.
And that's certainly for me. What does wealth do? It gives me the choice. How I spend each day, with whom, doing what, how much time I can take out away, traveling, doing the things I love. It's the choice. It's not seeing a number in the bank account. It's what that makes possible.
Yeah.
I want to talk about hidden financial costs. And specifically the hidden financial costs for successful, high-achieving women. Where are we perhaps leaking, intentionally or unintentionally, our power when it comes to our success?
Well, there's been some really interesting research that's come out of that from UBS. So the UBS Wealth Report, one of the latest ones, said that, and this particular report looked at high-achieving, high-earning women, and they found that even then, 90% of them were still managing the household budget. So there is a time, a time that is spent as women, even if we're high achieving, that often we're type A, so we need everything to be perfect. So we're managing the household budget, we're looking after the kids if we have them, there is a time deficit that we have. But interestingly, less than half were involved with long-term investing decisions.
Interesting.
And that really concerned me because there's an abdication that's happening where it's like, I am high achieving in all these areas, but when it comes to long-term investing, I'm just going to abdicate that. I'm not going to have any say in it. I'm simply going to pass that on. And there is a cost to that. because the research shows unequivocally, again and again, multiple studies have proven that women are better investors. That we tend to invest for the long term. We are less risky. We will invest regularly. We'll diversify. So we actually should have a seat at that table and be involved with those decisions. So the financial costs are that we are simply not across what's happening. We're all over potentially our business, but we're not over what's happening in our households with the wealth that is created or not there. And I get it. There is this trade-off of I'm busy, but my question as a high-achieving woman, I get it. There is a trade-off that I see between being busy on the right things and being busy building for the long term. And I want to make sure I'm enjoying today. I want to make sure I'm building my businesses and I am dealing with the urgent, but I also want to deal with the important. And I want to make sure that I am investing, that I am caring about my superannuation, that I am making sure that I am building those choices. Because the danger that I see is that, technology moves at such a rapid pace. We are in a hyper-competitive world. If you take your eye off that wealth creation ball and you can't sell your business for what you thought you could, or that revenue does decline, then if you are not building wealth, then suddenly you are having to hustle harder and harder and harder and having to keep your eye less and less off on that. So for me, it's riskier not to be building wealth and to be building a business than to be abdicating it like the stats show that so many women are.
I want to say something about that because I've heard this more and more in the last 12 months or 18 months, women thinking that selling the business is payday.
Oh, drives me nuts. Yep.
And the unfortunate part about that is a lot of these businesses, especially the ones that I get to see day to day, are beautiful service businesses, perhaps with great cash flow, hopefully with great profit. But the payday is like, trying to hit a dartboard that's a kilometre away because we don't know.
Absolutely.
And what if something was to happen? What if, there was some unfortunate incident and that cash flow from the business stopped? Then what?
Yeah.
And so, speak to that.
I so agree. So when I was an accountant, I used to talk to my clients about you want your sale to be the cherry on top, not the cake. So you want to have been building wealth. You want to have been contributing to super throughout with the cash flow of your business throughout its life so that when you go to sell, it's like, oh, wow, this would be amazing. Not, oh, God, it has to sell and I have to get this much. And if it doesn't, I have to keep working. Like that just removes all choice. And I absolutely see this because I part own a preschool. I've got a number of businesses. What it was worth pre-COVID versus what it is worth now because of rental increases, policy changes and more is a 10% of the value. So if that was the only egg I had in my basket, if that was the only thing I was relying on, I would be in a very different financial position than I am now. Whereas it is only one of the businesses that I have where I also invest in property, in shares, in super and more. So that whilst that's disappointing, it's not the be all and end all.
And if you're listening and you're like, well, that sounds great, but that is such a world I don't know, then stay tuned. We're going to give you details on how to get in touch with Mel and the different educational programs and offerings that she has. We talked earlier about having a number. Why? Tell us about that. What is your position on this, that we all need to have a number? And is it a revenue number? What is that number that you speak of?
What is this magical number? Well, I think it's got to be the thing that is motivating you. And that, for most people, you will have more than one wealth creation number and you'll have more than one business number. But there might be one that incentivizes you more. So if I look at both, the wealth creation number might be, I want to have $5 million by the time I stop working in investments. It might be that I want to be able to stop working at 60 with an income of $60,000 a year. it might, like, you would have hopefully you would have clear numbers around that. And then you would have numbers below that to what that means to contribute to super, investing in shares, etc. So you would have your big number, and then you would have your smaller numbers around, well, what does that mean for today? Business is the same. So I always have targets in my business that are kind of aspirational, and often they're both revenue and profit targets. I'll want to make, one of my big profit targets at the moment, I want 7 figures of profit. But my revenue target, therefore, is aligned to that. But I'll often make that larger. So I had something with my team last year where we said, what would we do if we wanted to hit 10 million? Because what you would do, not that we want to hit that, but it raises your eyesight. It means that what you're wanting to do is very different. And chances are you'll coast past where you want to get because you've got your eye on that bigger prize. But it's also then understanding underneath that, what are the numbers that you need to know so that you know if that's working or not? Because business is a series of experiments, and we don't know if those experiments are working if we don't know our numbers. That is just what it is. So I would want to know things like, or numbers that I know that I'm interested in are, what are my leads? What are my conversion rates? What's my average sale? What's my retention rate? Like, they're 4 numbers that I am all over. As well as what's my profit. Because if I'm chasing revenue but not also having that profit, then I'm not interested. So and I think something like that retention number can be a really interesting one, because I see the mistake for too many business owners is they're constantly chasing new customers, but they're not looking after the ones that they have, or they're not asking the question, what else do they want? They don't understand pricing psychology. So it's about understanding we don't just want to be good at what we do. We want to be good at business. And that means knowing the numbers. And you don't have to be an accountant. You can have a bookkeeper get these for you and let you know what they are regularly. But you need to understand the activities that will influence those numbers. So that you can run experiments and see, well, if I do this, how will it affect it?
Oh my gosh, we could just talk about all that for another hour.
I know.
Pricing, numbers. I do too. What are the things that we measure? And I wanted to pick up one thing you said, and that is you were asking with your team, if we were going to go to 10 million, what would it mean? And what I want to talk about is, just very briefly, is that if we are looking to incrementally grow, we can kind of muscle our way to a point. But if we want to scale, then that's a whole different way of thinking, of being, of showing up. Just like when I wrote that $1 million in the sand, we were at 300,000. The next year we might have gone through 20, 325, 350, I don't know, maybe 400. But within 2 years, we'd gone to 3 million. Then 5 million, and 10 million. That is totally different, but you have to know the numbers. And I confess, I am not a numbers person traditionally, but I know which numbers to watch and which ones I can influence, to Mel's point. And then I get my reports from the bookkeeper in a way that has me go, oh, okay, that's working, that's not working. I don't have to know how to balance my books. I don't have to do all that. Great if you can, but it's understanding the numbers that matter most to you and having the distinctions that Mel just gave us of what are the numbers that I need to be tracking. We don't need to be tracking everything. Whereas see people tracking how many followers they have on social media.
Often revenue, vanity targets. Yeah.
Right. Rather than what is the profitability of this offer that I keep adding value to? This scope creep that I have in this price point where I'm ending up not making enough, or, somewhere where there's a leak because there's, either ill-performing team members or things, subscriptions we haven't let go of, or extra expenses. Like there is a lot. I'm not saying it's simple, but as business owners, we don't have to, as you said, be the accountant, but we need to have, the commitment to understanding the numbers and then getting clear on what numbers matter. And there are people that can help you get clear on that if you're not sure.
I can't agree with everything you said more. Like, you don't need to know them all, but you need to know the ones that will take you where you want to go. And you need to understand the activity that will affect those numbers and run those experiments. But to your point, when we ran that, when we asked that question of the team, that's part of the reason why we ran such a giant. So that was going to be a small conference initially that we ran last year for the first time, Her Wealth, Her Way. It morphed into a 700 women, our very first conference, 700 women conference with sponsors, and we fed them and we kept the price point because when we asked that question, it would be a bigger conference. We would put a thing in the sand to say, if it was a conference created by women for women, it would need to be this big for a business that wanted a voice that loud. And that we sold that out. And this year we're looking at one for 1,000 plus women.
Fantastic.
So you ask better questions because of it, and the outcomes are wildly different. I so agree, Susie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I really, as you're watching, listening, I want you to think bigger. We don't all have to have the big 7-figure goals, but I want you to think beyond how you've thought before about your numbers. As business owners specifically, are there any financial foundations, dipping into your advisor and your accounting history, that must be in place to support the owner? I know we've just mentioned some of them. Is there anything else that you would say?
So definitely the great bookkeeper and a great accountant. If you don't have an accountant that's not meeting with you regularly, that's doing tax planning, that's doing budgeting, go find one that does. Because sometimes you can outgrow the professionals that you've used. So it's going to find those people. A bookkeeper and accountant are two essentials as far as I'm concerned, because there comes a point where, yes, you want to know them, but you don't want to be doing your own bookkeeping. There's more important things you can be doing. So it's that. But once we have, and then it's having a structure of reporting and looking at, so we have a daily check-in for our team. We have weekly meetings. We have quarterly offsites. So it's getting into that rhythm of, I'm not just outsourcing it to the accountant and bookkeeper. My team knows what we're chasing. I once worked with a large trade group when I was an accountant. And if you ask any of the managers, and I think we had about 30 managers, what they were chasing 30% GP. Everyone knew it. It was just everyone across that business knew it because they talked about it all the time. It was talked about in their toolbox talks. It was talked about in their offsites. So once you know the numbers, I think it's really important structurally for your team to know what the important ones are that you're chasing as well, and motivate them to as well. Not with short-term things that will derail the business, but so that it's the long term. But I think you have to look up the other side as well. So you've got to automate your wage. You've got to automate your super. You've got to automate your investing. You've got to build that muscle of financial literacy. And I'm not a fan of just abdicating it to a financial advisor. Financial advisors can be amazing, and I know some great ones that we work with in our community. But you want to develop your financial literacy first, so that when you go and meet with them, you understand it's a conversation, not them just telling you this is what we're doing and you're hoping that they're doing enough. And I watched today the conversation with Tora, who was the Olympic snowboarder for Australia, in a podcast interview. And she said when she got that massive sponsorship endorsement, she went to a financial advisor and he lost it. And it's one of those stories where it was heartbreaking to listen to her. But we don't just want to abdicate and trust professionals. We want to have financial literacy and develop what I call a database gut. So Karen James from Women in Focus first coined that, where we understand our numbers. We know we have got that level of financial literacy. So when someone else suggests something and we go, that doesn't feel right to us, we trust that. And we don't go, oh, no, they're professionals, they know. We actually trust that gut. But for busy high-performing business owners particularly, we want to automate as much of this as we can. Because personally, I don't want to be thinking about, oh, yeah, that's right, I meant to invest $1,000 into a broad-based ETF with Pearl every week. I don't want to be thinking about that. I want it to happen in the background. So you can set that up so it just happens. So you can focus in on your business and simply building that.
Mm. And in the book you talk about, for those who perhaps haven't really ventured into, you're great at making money, but you're not putting any of it away for the future. It doesn't even take a lot of money to start building the habit and the structures to, as you say, automate that money going and then watching what happens to it over time. And whether you are currently 35, 45, 55, it doesn't matter. It's not too late, 65 even.
Yeah.
If you get the right structures around you and the right advice around you. And I love what you said there about abdicating. I know for me too, there were times, especially early in the business, like I was the marketing brains, PJ's the finance brains, and, never the two shall meet. And then I thought, I cannot, in hand on heart, run a business supporting women business owners and keep my head in the dark purely because it doesn't come naturally to me. And so I had to find a way to have things automated, have the right people around me, and be financially literate enough to be able to, as you said, just feel like you're in your own power, like you can hear something and that, what do you call it, brain?
The database gut.
Database gut could go,
no.
Yeah. So good. So if someone is listening, they're generating great revenue, they haven't started to put that in places where that's going to create wealth, what's the first structural shift that she should make this year?
So I hope that you've heard me say again and again, automate it. Yeah. So if you are not already paying yourself a wage and paying yourself super, they're the first two things I want you to start doing and automate it. Yes, you have to in Australia pay quarterly super. For you, it might be monthly. Just have it come out of your bank account, just make it happen. And I want you to do the same with your investing. And there's a few things we want to get right before we're investing. If you've got bad debt, which is credit cards Afterpay, personal loans, we want to get rid of that. We want a buffer, so a cash account of, say, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And I talk about all this in my book. But after that, we want to also be investing personally too, because otherwise I have to wait until I retire and can access my super in order to stop work. So I want to ultimately doing it both. But the first structural shift, automate. Pay myself a wage, pay myself super, and then start investing automatically outside as well.
At Her Business, we have a tagline which I feel fits you. What I know of you, it fits the book, and that is your business, your rules. How has that idea shaped the way that you run your business and life?
I loved when I read that because my saying is design the life you love. So it's about creating, my business exists to create a life I love. And as someone who came from quite a violent, inconsistent household, that means that I want to make enough profit that I can donate a crap load of money to charity. That's part of designing the life I love. It's meant that I'm not scared to make a profit as well as have a purpose, because the more I earn, the more I can give away. And that is genuinely how I think of it now. But it also shaped the type of business that I have. So I used to own an accounting and financial advice firm. I'm stupidly introverted. Those one-on-ones energetically just didn't serve me. So I sold that business pre-COVID. And I now run a financial education company because I felt like I'd bought a job and a job that I hated. So I now have a business where it's educational. It is, yes, it's still in real life, but there are moments, they're not all the time. I get to have my brain picked and work in such a way that just enables me to give back and have that purpose profit business that I really wanted that actually works for me. So that has definitely shaped my business because I never want to feel trapped and like I've bought myself a job again. For me, business has to be about purpose and profit. And that absolutely shapes how I run my business.
The latest book is Dare to Be Wealthy, the anti-hustle approach to creating real wealth on your own terms. Mel, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
We all started our businesses for a reason. And what I hear most often is those reasons were to create something more meaningful, to have more freedom, to make a difference, to build something that really matters, to leave a legacy. But somewhere along the way, we can become uncomfortable with the idea of actively and unapologetically building wealth. I know that has been a stuck point for me many, many times. Just questioning, who am I to build wealth? But like I said, that definition I gave you very early on from Buckminster Fuller of a person's ability to survive a number of day forwards, that for me became the guiding light. Having a number in mind or having a situation with our investments in mind. The business takes center stage. It is the vehicle through which our wealth can be created. And the freedom, the choice, the future we deeply want, we don't want to push that to the back. Mel is daring us to bring that back into focus, and that's exactly the work she does with women every single day. Because a profitable business isn't the same as a plan that is going to set you free financially. Real wealth, as Melissa says, is built deliberately. It's built by business owners who decide without apology that they deserve to be financially free as a direct result of the work they are doing right now. That is a leadership decision, and it will shift not just how your business operates, but where it takes you. Now, all of Melissa's links and resources, including one to her book, Dare to Be Wealthy, which I highly recommend you pick up a copy of today, are in the show notes for this episode over at herbusiness.com/366. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you would leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. That's the best place, or even on Spotify, just mentioning how much you enjoyed Mel, how clever she is, how much you love the show, all those things. Or you can send us a message directly on Instagram, and I'll be sure to share the love with Mel. You'll find us on Instagram at herbusiness. And once again, on our website at herbusiness.com/366, you'll find a summary of today's episode, links to Mel's programs, and links to any other resources that we've talked about. And if you're new to the show, please subscribe or hit follow wherever you are listening, and join us for the next episode for more inspiring stories and lessons from successful female entrepreneurs. See you back here soon, right here on the Her Business podcast. Bye for now.